Hey, listeners, welcome back. I'm so excited to be talking with Brian Reaves. He is the EVP and Chief Belonging, Equity, and Impact Officer at UKG. In his role, Brian leads the company's Global Belonging, Equity, and Impact program, expanding existing initiatives while working to strengthen a culture built on trust, fairness, and equality. So every UK brewer, I love that,
Yeah.
can thrive in every stage of their career. Hey, Brian.
Hello, Julie. Good to see you again.
Same, same. Well, I'm so excited to talk about your work and continuing, to put inclusion and leadership at the
Mhm.
forefront. And I thought before we dug in, I know you've spent your career in this work. I'd love to just hear a short version of where you've traveled and what your perspective is on things nowadays.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like I have, sort of being born, sort of, I think I was born into the work, even though I've had different chapters of how it's been expressed. Sort of humbly, I'm here in Los Angeles today. I'm back sort of having a fun little vacation here, though I live in Austin, Texas now, but grew up very humbly, here. We call it socioeconomically deprived. That's the new words people use. We call it poor, or we call it PO, actually Po. We couldn't afford the OR. So there, but a house full of love and a family that really wanted me and all of us to be better. So I give you that to say that as my life progressed and my education allowed me and afforded me a different path than many of my friends who grew up in the neighborhood I grew up with. I was always, as I got to UCLA, math and computer science, sort of getting into engineering and software engineering and having a career. The first significant part of my career was really around software development and being a leader there. I always, sort of went back to my young self, Julie, thinking, wow, the difference in my life from, than many of my friends' lives, which different, was really around, certainly my parents, my grandparents paying a lot of attention, but equally, the opportunity to be educated and the opportunity to sort of choose a career that didn't, sort of start with, whether a lot of the careers that sadly happen from the communities. People smarter than I ever could be, but didn't have an opportunity to choose differently. So, you fast forward and about 10 years ago, I decided, even though I was having a great time as an engineering leader, doing some amazing things, at least for me and my passion. I thought it was super important for me to try to figure out along this journey, how might I do something very prescriptively to lean into creating opportunities so that the other Brian Reeves, and it's not just young Black men from Los Angeles or South Central LA, it's around the world that have nots have an opportunity to have. And having, some authenticity an understanding of that journey, how might I lean in and do, to a set of work that would enable opportunity for the have-nots to, who all want to have, or vast majority want to have, to give them those opportunities.
Yeah, I can relate to that so much. And our own origin story for this work, I think, is so important. And those
Yeah.
humble beginnings that we have,
Yes.
it gives us like perspective on what really matters and what's front and center on this work. And
Yes.
I've always felt like inclusion and allyship is like if you have had a chance to kind of rise through those circumstances, what an opportunity to give back to others.
Yes.
Well, I feel like that is being misperceived right now.
Yeah.
To me, that's what the work's always been about, is the more we have, the more we have to give back. And
And,
that's
and
clearly
Julie,
been
you said it. That's why I love the your work and all the work you've done around allyship because everyone has a unique lived experience. I mean, there's no homogenous people in the world. I hope we don't get to a point, even
yeah.
through robotic technologies where we become homogenous. That uniqueness is our superpower. And one's lived experience, whatever it is, the way you're born into it, it's the superpower is actually your willingness to bestow some of the goodness onto someone else and be on that everlasting learning journey, not only to share with others, but to also learn from others, because that's how you expand your lived experience. We can't live everyone's life, but we certainly can have empathy and listen to someone else and then go tell 10 friends and so on that we're more alike than not. And that's the thing that I think when humans are at their best, that's what we do. When we're at our worst, we get fearful of others and we try to hide our uniqueness and we try to be like everyone, that's when I think that's when things slow down. That's not the definition of innovation. Innovation is when you have unique, new experiences and lived experiences that can be driven into, and for my world, software and instantiated there, and then you come up with something even greater. And that's how we evolve as human beings.
Yeah, totally, totally. And that lived experience, I think is so critical right now because
Yes,
it's been so identity focused, and obviously those are really incredible variables in diversity and inclusion work. Yet also, kind of everyone has that unique perspective to bring, and if we're
yes,
not bringing those to work, we can't be, like you said, as innovative, as productive.
yes,
So what's good for individuals is good for business. And I know,
absolutely.
Brian, you lead RISE at UKG, which affectionately stands for Rising Innovators Sustaining Excellence, as an employee resource group. And I'd love,
Yes.
share with our listeners what the goal is of that group and what you're up to nowadays.
No, at least into what you just said. So, the Rise is our newest and our 10th ERG, and we have, the other nine ERGs are more traditional in nature. You'll have things around identity, or you have, the way people identify. You have an ERGs around, ethnicity. You have ERGs around gender, even ability, or disability, veterans, and even some around, the way, sort of family sort of the makeup and the evolution of how people take care of one another. But what I love about Rise is it's intergenerational. And a lot of people, when they thought, it's like, oh, that's the early talent ERG. And it's like, yes, it was born out of, whether it's Gen Z or was it Gen L? I don't even know what the new Gen is. I'm sorry, I got to keep up. Yeah, we got to start over. I said, we should have started at the earlier letters first, because by the time you get to
I
Z,
know,
what are
it's
you
like
going
we're
to
not
do?
back to A. It is confusing.
Activity too. But the power of that ERG, and oh, by the way, at my last company, when we were at Dell Technologies, they had a version, it's called Next Gen there. But the power of it is intergenerational, where all generations matter because of those lived experiences. And, the world has evolved, over time. And if that ERG, which at its thesis is to not only embrace their voices and what's important, but to understand the voices before them and to tap into those. So what you're going to find, especially when you start talking about allyship or you talk about mentorship or sponsorship, the reality is in our company, the people who are maybe from prior generations are, further up the rank. They have more work experience. So why not tap into that? Why make the same mistakes or, go your own path when you can tap into a bunch of people who can really help, show you in your career and vice versa. Those same people want to understand, because we all have to lead as timeless leaders. How might I lead people who think differently, who grew up in a
Mhm.
generation that I didn't grow up in? I'll tell you a quick funny story. I know on time here. The last time in the last company we did this, I was worried because I was thinking, oh my goodness, sort of there's all of the more mature people like myself are going to come and just, start lecturing to this earlier talent about what we know.
Does,
And I
does that
and I
work? I don't think that works,
it,
right?
it didn't work. And I tell people, do not start your, with, well, here's what I know. Like, listen, the most powerful capability any human has is to listen and to learn. And it went the other way. So we had these mature people, and they came back and they were like, I love my session. I know I'm trying to add value to the earlier generation, but they're telling me how my kids think. So when I go home, I'm like the cool dad, I'm the cool mom, I'm the cool uncle. And my kids are looking like, who are you talking to at work?
Kind of
Because you
like
got to give us,
slang
like,
words
yeah,
and
exactly.
yeah.
So that, so the collaboration was so powerful. And I know it'll happen here as well, because it was about people learning from people and their unique experiences and how to be
Mhm.
better after it. And then again, go tell 10 friends and so on. So I'm excited about Rise. And it's around, it'll be around the world. I think it'll be our largest CRG within a year, 18 months. It'll be the largest CRG. We have 6,000 plus people, unique people out of the 15,000 now. I think Rise will become the largest one in about 18
Mhm.
months because of that factor.
Well, I love that focus for so many reasons. One, because Gen Z, and I think roughly born from 97 to like
Yes.
2013, I think. I have one on the cusp, a kiddo that's 11, I think is Gen Alpha. So yeah, to your
Yeah,
point.
yes, yes,
But Gen Z is coming in hot in the workforce. I
yes. Oh,
mean,
yes,
and we're hitting peak retirements of baby boomers.
yes,
I don't
yes.
think, I think there's a big misunderstood perception in the workplace that like previous generations that kind of fell in line, like us millennials, or I'm an older millennial, but we kind of were like, oh, okay, I want purpose in my work, purpose over paycheck. I remember thinking those things too, but at the end of the day, I was like, all right, I guess that's not how things work here. I'll just
Yeah,
comply.
I need that paycheck there. Yeah, the only P that matters is that paycheck right now.
But
Yeah.
Gen Z's like, nope, I'm not gonna do that. I don't have to.
Exactly.
There's a labor
Exactly.
force dynamic, whether we like it or not. There's just forecasted labor shortages, not just in the US, but globally. And so it's really
Yes.
smart, I think, to be proactive with an employee resource group or a dedicated, like you said, next gen group, whatever that looks like. And this whole idea of we learn not just from
Yes.
people that are most marginalized, or in this case, younger employees. Usually, the benefits are to the folks that are trying to be better allies. The
Exactly.
benefits of allyship are very real to
Yes.
individual leaders, but also to the organization, because you learn something new when you listen.
You
And
listen.
that's such a
Yes.
gem. I know most leadership books start with like, listen, you need to listen more. And we think we're
Yeah.
really good listeners, but even when I'm trying to listen, Brian, I'm usually thinking about what I want to say next.
There you go. It's that's that's why that I was reading a book that's like active listening, because you have to act just like you have to actively be in the moment to allow yourself to not only hear but to digest and to ask questions too. I mean, I think we as human beings need to get better at it's okay to ask questions. I mean, I will start a conversation by I'm probably going to say something ignorant now because I don't know how to ask this
Mhm.
question. So please just, give me some grace there. And I think if we gave one another, Julie, more grace and the ability to ask, I'm asking to better understand. I'm not asking to question you. And I think sometimes when people ask questions like, well, why'd you ask that question? It's like I actually
Mhm.
really am trying to learn because that's the only way that I learn, or many people learn that way. So listening, active listening, and the ability to ask questions, and then once I get it, then to go from that understanding to me now trying to be an advocate for that point of view is the power of human beings, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate that perspective on listening. As I was trying to actively listen while you were sharing that, it's
Love
harder
it.
than you think. It's like
It's
you're
hard.
still, your mind drifts, and you
Yes.
you have to remind yourself, like, it is an action to listen. That is
Yes.
an act itself. I wonder, Brian, I mean, it's no surprise, right? There's been backlash for years on our work, and
Mhm.
navigating all that, I think, especially in a global context right now, I'm just curious, how do my hunch has been, my guidance to clients has been employee resource groups are
Yes.
absolutely stay the course. That is a
Yes.
100% legal, 100% inclusive thing to do. Just
Because
make
it's
sure,
for all. It's for all. I mean,
oh,
employee
yeah,
research groups are
make sure
for
allies are
everyone.
engaged.
Yeah,
Like, make sure
exactly.
they know that they
Exactly.
want to be, that they're
Yeah.
invited, that we want to include them, and give them some
Yes.
guidelines to your point about listening rather than speaking, and when it's a
Yes.
good time to be curious versus judgmental. Some of those things I think can be just good, helpful watch outs to facilitate an inclusive
Yeah.
environment for allies. But I'm wondering, Brian, from your vantage point with 10 ERGs up and running and this, great work around Rise for younger generations, where do you see employee resource groups fitting in amongst all this kind of changing landscape?
I think they're fundamental for growth. And we have the great honor of we acquired a company called Great Place to Work about 5 years ago. We as in UKG, and a lot of the 30 years of research and data that they have about human beings leans
Hmm.
into the fact that in today's time, there's no better time if you haven't started a set of resource groups, employee resource groups or business resource groups or whatever you want to call them, these advocacy groups, do it now. Because as we're now, sort of think about how we must lead. We can either pretend as though we know how the world works and we've got it all, figured out, or we can actually get the most important resource that we have in all of our companies to be more deeply engaged. And the research from Great Place to Work and even independent research that we've done in my teams over the years shows that people in employee resource groups are more engaged. People in employee resource groups have higher levels of retention.
Hmm.
People in employee resource groups, because by definition, these are extraordinary things. It's like I have a job, whatever that job is, I came to do the company, but I spend time doing this extra thing to add value to the company. Those are the
Hmm.
voices you really want to lean into, right? So
Hmm.
I think that, for companies, when you're thinking about in these times or any other times, how might I be have greater retention, greater employee engagement, greater innovation, because as you get the employee resource groups, they're not just for this month or that month. You focus them on employee development. You do sort of innovation. You drive. Who better to if you're trying to build better products in the area of accessibility? Why wouldn't you go to your family members and ask them, how might you consume the services or the products better instead of hiring a consultant? These people will tell you the truth. And if you include them into the story, they'll continue to be more engaged. So I think there's no greater thing. And we're about to do something called the ERG experience at the Great Place to Work for All Summit next week. That's happening here. But we'll have across a number of the most iconic companies in the world, about 500 to 600 ERG members engage. We gave them the opportunity, intercompany opportunity to engage and learn best practices for one another so that we can accelerate the ERG experience. That's why we called it the ERG experience.
Oh, I love that. I love that. It's so refreshing to hear continual dedication and growth in
Absolutely.
this space. And that, yeah, you make such great points. Higher engagement, more innovation levels. Who doesn't want more retention? It's very costly, turnover
Yes,
for businesses. And we have data that backs this up from employee resource groups,
100%.
especially what we know about historically marginalized groups in the workforce tend to have lower engagement and
Yes,
higher or lower retention rates, but yeah, lead to a lot of innovation and can just
yes,
give you really good, honest viewpoints on your products or services from that inclusive lens, because you're probably missing out on either key demographics in the market or, like you said,
exactly.
accessibility needs aren't being met.
They're a proxy to your customer base. We have 80,000 customers in the world. We serve,
Mhm.
tens of millions, if not 100 million folks who are engaging with our software. What better people to know? I mean, and from the frontline worker to the office worker to everywhere in between, these ERG groups could be proxies, and they will tell you, to your great point, Julie, what is missing and what's not. And you
Mhm.
want that feedback if you leverage them in that capacity. Um, and the other thing about ERGs, and I tell people this all the time, it's like people say, well, we have 10. Do I have to join all 10? No. That's the beauty of
Right?
having all of them
Yeah.
work together. So in every given month, they highlight one another, and it's just a beautiful thing at UKG. But I tell people, maybe join the one you think you have the most affinity, but the power will come when you join the one you have least affinity to. Where else can you have a lived and learned, I mean, expand your lived experience and learned experience from
Mhm.
trusted people who have commonality around wanting this company to be great. And I find folks doing that all the time. So if it's like, where do you get this education? Not online. Go to your family members. They'd be honestly, they take you on that journey if you're humbly willing to go there.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that example of join one that you have lived experience or affinity for yourself, and then join one that's a stretch because you're going
Yes.
to learn more. And so not
Oh,
only can you learn about what it means to have that experience and
yes.
receive allyship, but you can also extend allyship as it is
There you
usually a
go.
two-way street.
It's always a two-way street. That
Yeah.
listening and learning is just inexorably tied together there. And as a leader, certainly that's why I want more managers and senior managers, what better way to learn how to lead broadly? So as you grow leadership in your career, you're going to have all kinds of people within your remit. And it's not like you go back to school and learn how to, Gen Alpha, how are they thinking? You can go and sort of join, rise and learn and you don't have to take a leadership position, but actually be led by, just sort of join a pillar where actually one of the Gen Alpha folks are leading the pillar. And what better way for you to learn what that experience is than take that into your broader leadership experience?
Mhm.
It's so amazing. And a lot of our leaders who have been executive sponsors say, hey, I might be the person that's the executive sponsor, but I'm getting as much out of this as
Yeah.
but just by being in it. I'm learning all kinds of things that I'm now taking out to my broader group. And it's starting to show in their sentiment from the feedback they're getting from their broader employees and their leadership styles being better and more
Yeah.
effective.
Yeah, because especially as you go up inside an organization, it gets lonelier and lonelier, right? And you're
Yes, it
more
does.
removed from the front lines that tend to be of more
Yes.
diverse identities. And so you lose that perspective unless you're proactive about it.
Yes.
And that can cause, people get a little complacent in business or a little bit
They do.
removed from innovation and things that matter to the future. So,
Yes.
yeah, executive sponsors, I think too, for leaders that are listening, if you haven't engaged as an executive sponsor, like what an incredible learning opportunity. And
Yes.
I'm always reminded selfishly, in the work of allyship that it's you get a lot more out of it than you put into it when you're doing
Do.
it well. And it's not
Yes.
hard to do it well. I don't mean to make that sound like that, but if you
Yes.
really go in with a curious mindset,
Yes.
you're going to have tremendous benefits. And I've seen it firsthand because, like, one of the most deepest primal needs is to be helpful, to care, to
Yes.
feel cared for, and to care for others.
Yes.
That's what I think about ERGs, are these lovely, caring places within these capitalist structures that, society
Yeah, like,
operates with, let's be honest. But we can still
yes,
care about each other. We can still
we
do work
can.
and have profit and passion. It doesn't have to be a
Can.
separate thing.
One of our ERGs, and again, you have the folks and a number of them that people are saying, no, I'm in two or three of them, is Nest. And, Nest for us, that's the one around families. And they have these pods, and one of the pods, and it's very powerful if you sit in and listen to them, is first-time parents.
Mm.
So,
Oh
I
my
mean,
gosh, I
there's
would have loved
the,
that.
just exactly. And so you have these people who are, of course, may go to your parents if your parents, if you're blessed enough to still have them or grandparents or what have you. But these stories that people are like supporting one another, it's like, okay, so Julie, you're having, your first baby and this is expect this. And it's like having this extended family of people who are there for you, who celebrate and know your unique experience. Or, we have
Mhm.
one where it's called Cares, where it started out around people who have had cancer and or have supported someone on that journey, and it's now moved out to other life-threatening diseases. But to be on that journey, like even outside of work, and there are things happening, but inside of work, where people are leaning in and sharing their experiences, it's just, because your life there it is, you can't have, they say, work-life balance. There is no balance. It's like it's all mixed up together. And what beauty is if you're getting value on regardless of what you're doing, you're getting value from people who care deeply about you and have empathy
Mhm.
for you and experience that help you sort of navigate that thing that you might not have been able to navigate effectively as today.
Mhm. And how fun is that to receive that support and to know what it feels like to have that support, or maybe not even having that support yourself, but being able to give it to other
To give
people
it.
because you know how challenging it can be. I remember it was a long time ago when I was a new parent in the workplace, but going back to Nest, I remember coming back after 5 weeks, which is just here in the US, it's kind of barbaric how we treat parents and people that give birth.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
that was the reality for me. And
yeah.
I remember, Brian, like coming back my first day and we didn't have a mother's room or a nursing room
Mhm.
or, anything inclusive oriented around that experience. And I literally was spilled milk and I was crying over spilled milk. It was such a horrible experience in a closet and, having to go back to work and then try to be yourself and not talk about what had happened and just
Yes,
that visceral feeling, it just is such an opportunity to get it right because what we have happen a lot, and this happened to me, this is a long time ago, but it happens still today, is we lose really talented folks because they just
yeah,
can't take it anymore. You think I can't do both of these things well, and it's
yes,
pretty easy when you're caring for a little person or an older person or any
yes,
caring for anybody to just be like, that's more important. And to force that dichotomy for people seems unfair. So Nest, I wish I would
absolutely.
have the Nest
Oh,
that.
very, and that's one of the pods as well. Is for another powerful pod in Nest. It was that experience of sandwich generation where you're taking care of kids and you're taking care of elderly parents, and what does that look like? And it feels lonely, because different chapters are going on, and so then just again being able to have people who understand and who are just empathetic, they listen, they, sort of answer questions or give you advice and thoughts. It just helps you through that period where again you don't have to choose. It's like at work I have value beyond the obvious value of being employed, we're talking about purpose and things that really matter. And that's why people are so engaged in these things because there's so much value that comes from the experience of being this company allows us to
Mhm.
be more than the obvious worker, if you would. So,
Yeah. Well, and you know, from great places to work, I mean, there's so much evidence that when you
oh,
have close relationships at work, it's called all sorts of things, best friends on, Gallup's.
camaraderie is what we have. It's powerful. We call it, we have the four pillars of the model are, trust between, bidirectionally, sort of pride in work because people who actually, care deeply about the outcome actually do extraordinary
Mhm.
things to make the outcomes great. Camaraderie, which is that thing where,
Mhm.
is that just a coworker or are they kind of extended part of my family? I can depend on them. They have my back. I have their back. And then, but that experience in the best companies is every individual, every person has that, trust, pride, camaraderie, all of it works for everyone. It's not just a great place to work for some, it's a great place to work for all. That whole for all is
Mhm.
so, so, so important.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't leave places that we feel a trust and close relationships and those things. Those are sticky things, especially nowadays where there's a lot of turbulence and noise that can distract
Yes.
us. Those are the things that keep us grounded as humans.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Brian, I'm so thankful for your work and
I'm thankful for you.
UKG for being diligent and focused and staying in this space. And employee resource groups are just such a wonderful way. Like you said, if you don't have them, not too late to start. You don't have to have 10. You can start with
No,
one.
start with one, and before you know it, you might have two and three. They just sort of people will find value in them, and for leaders to leverage them for the advancement of their companies. I mean, it's a great, 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 and we do, and we feel I'm honored that our leadership, our senior leadership, leverages and engages the ERGs. These are their peeps if you would. If you really want to know the truth, go to the people who not only will tell you the truth, they'll tell you because they want the company to continue to be great.
Yeah.
And that's what the greatest companies do. So,
Hmm.
but your work is so important in telling the stories and giving us a platform to talk about it. I'm happy to come back and say, well, Rise and what's number 11? And,
Yeah.
who knows what number 11 is going to be if we have it.
Yeah.
But Rise is yeah, they're going to grow extraordinarily
Yeah.
quickly, I think,
I
around the
love
world.
that, Brian. I love that.
Mm.
Well, for our listeners that want to see more about Rise and UKG's work, is there a good place for them to go to see the work?
Absolutely. A few things here in my team. Number one, you just go to ukg.com and there's if you search the site there's a site where we talk about our employee resource groups. There's a section called Stories with Purpose where you'll hear some of the stories from the UKG members, but we also have a playbook. We are happy for anyone on this call, if you want to reach out through Julie or to us, I have a great team of ERG leaders. And we humbly, because of our experiences, we've created a playbook that we're willing to share with the world, how to get it started, how to grow
Mhm.
one, how to do, to create chapters, what not to look for, those things. We want everyone who is interested to be able to have the benefit of an ERG. So reach out and we'll get that published out there for you as well. Or give it to
Oh,
you, Julia, and you can consume it.
yeah.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
listeners. Yeah, yeah. Send it send us a note if you want to see that. We'll make sure to get that for you. And what
Yeah,
a lovely resource to offer because people struggle with like how to start them, how to maintain them.
yeah,
Right now, it's like, what can I do? What can I do?
I
How do
do.
I engage allies? What do I do when this happens? So that's really
Governance,
fun.
we have all that in there from soup to nuts, and we have an FAQ we keep adding just in uncertain times how to lean into what we think and we know to be true, including the business impact of it too. Will how to structure it to ensure its business impact is just not a nice to have, but it is an imperative to your company that drives it forward. Everyone will invest in value. Any legitimate, sort of company and smart leaders to invest in value and retention and engagement and all those things are very valuable that net out to the top and bottom line.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. Well, Brian, so thankful for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing the playbook and keep on staying strong. I love this.
Thank you. Thank you for what you do, Julie. I hope we get a chance to engage once again sometime in the future. Take care.